My name is Andrea Pennington. I'm an integrative physician, acupuncturist, best-selling author, and international speaker. My career in broadcast and digital media spans over 20 years. As past medical director for Discovery Health Channel, I've had multiple appearances on Oprah, Dr. Oz, and CNN, and my TED Talks have reached 2.5 million people. For the last several years, I've been helping other doctors, dentists, healers, and coaches from around the world to share their messages with global audiences through personal branding, publishing, online courses, and media training. And what makes this combination unique is that I am bringing my 20 years of expertise as a professional speaker and coaching other people on their TED-style talks. So I know what it takes to craft a keynote, a TED Talk, and even workshop presentations so that you communicate your message with confidence and clarity. Hello, hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to another edition of my live show. Welcome to everyone who is tuned in on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Please type in the chat and let us know where you're from. Today, we are going to be exploring what it takes to become a professional, well-paid speaker. This has been a hot topic for the last few sessions, and I'm excited because today I actually have someone, a speaker's agent from the UK, who's going to bust some myths about what it takes to become a professionally paid speaker. I met this lovely woman, Kelly Tyler, from Stellar Speakers a few years ago, and I'm so grateful that we are connected and that I am amongst the fabulous roster of Stellar Speakers. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. What an entry Showreel. You just have so much style and pizzazz. This is why we manage you, right? Because you just make an entrance that nobody else can.
Oh, well, I mean, I've got to put that background to good use, right? And I mean, speaking of background, you have had a stellar career. What has led you on this path to become the founder of Stellar Speakers, to bring all of your marketing expertise to this area?
Sure. I have a real passion for thought leaders and change agents, people that are rocking their industry, doing good. Our tagline is about making a positive impact in the world, right? So this is why one of the reasons why we're massively drawn to you. But what I found with most people who had this message is they were quite frustrated because they were like the Albert Einsteins of the world, but had no marketing power whatsoever. So if they got launched or introduced to do a small keynote or even just to be interviewed on a podcast, they made a massive impact on that stage, but actually they weren't doing that globally, and they didn't know how to reach the audiences, they didn't know how to position themselves as an expert, and they didn't know how to market themselves with their USP, their offering, all these things, because they just knew how to do what they did really well. And so I am a raving introvert. I have no desire to be in the spotlight whatsoever. And a lot of the agents in my team are similar. What we love to do is actually go, how can we position, platform, and profile these people so their messages get heard by the world? And that's when I thought, well, I've been a publisher before, so I had a publishing house. I know how to do this through publishing. I know how to do this from a business consultant and set people's businesses up. But actually, platforming, helping speakers get their voice heard, where I just reel them out. That's really where people wanted to go. Could you do the hard work? Could you do the administration, the marketing, the negotiating of fees, the contracts? And I just rock up and be awesome. And I suppose that's probably where most of your audience are listening from, are going, yeah, that's me, that's what I want. But I might bust a couple of bubbles on today's chat. But that's really what inspired me to set Stellar Speakers up in 2012.
Wow, it's been that long. Whoa. Okay, so I do think we should bust some of the myths out there. I think it is for most people, myself included. I mean, when I came out as a speaker, as you heard in that show reel, I was working for Discovery Channel. So I didn't come out with this intention. It just started happening. I was being called on. I was being asked to speak. And in the beginning, I wasn't getting paid because I was representing the network. When I started to get paid and it was all on me, it is kind of like, well, I don't want to do all the negotiation, and I don't want to have to flex on people and tell them I'm worth it. And I also didn't want to have to go out there and look for work. So working
Sure.
with a speakers bureau or an agency does take a lot of that heavy lifting off of us. But let's start off with the very basic. We do need a platform, and that's the first step. Well, it's the second step in my 5-stage process. After stage 1 is like getting the vision for what you want. Step 2 is to create this brand platform that describes who you are, what you stand for, and then maybe you could attract a speaker's agency. But let's start at the very beginning. Let's say somebody is listening and they're saying, I think I'm a great speaker. What does an agent look for in a speaker to say, yeah, I would add you to my roster?
Sure. And I think I want to make a distinction here between agencies and bureaus because they are different. So we're an agent, which means that we have a very small concierge group of speakers that we work with. And what that means is that we know these speakers inside out. So we know their business models, we know their personality, we've probably met them, been for dinner, they've been around our house, all those types of things. So it's not like they're just a name and a face on our books that we don't know in detail. And that's why we only have a small amount of people that we manage. Bureaus have hundreds and thousands of typical speakers on their books that they know a little bit of detail about, and then they'll match them via keyword and topic more than really understand what they're about. So you have to stand out a lot more on bureaus, and predominantly you'll find the A-class speakers on there, the celebrity speakers, which people already know. Oh, I want Alan Sugar or Richard Branson, and they go and look for them, rather than going, I want a resilient speaker, and then that bureau going, well, here, we've got this lady here, you need to check her out. So first of all, decide which you want to go for. Both of them, however, and this is where I might crush some bubbles or bust some myths for your audiences, both of them need you to be at a level of a professional speaker when they take you on. You might get listed on bureaus because they just think, oh, okay, that person's going to be good for SEO. And if opportunistically somebody's going to come and look for that keyword, we'll have someone on our books doing that. But don't rely on a bureau to be getting you loads of work if you aren't already an established professional speaker. I'm going to talk now predominantly from my agency of what we look for. And this is pretty much above the board. I run a network online called the Connection Hub, where a lot of agents hang out. So if you're on Facebook and you want to join that, then you can connect with other agents in there. And some of the agents and me have a conversation about this, so I know that they're aligned. The first thing is, you won't go very far without a showreel. Right? It's so important to have a speaker showreel because this is your business card. This is your chance to be seen and heard by the booker. And if somebody's going to say, oh, I've got this resilient speaker, and we put her in touch and we just give you the bio or the keynotes, that person doesn't know your credibility, your tone of voice, how you dress, your ethics, your values, all the clients and stages you've worked on before. They don't really get that in a snapshot.
Right.
So as a speaker agent, we don't have time to go and watch you go and do your keynote to decide whether we want to take you on. We'll look at your TED Talks and we want to see your showreel because we want to see your level of ability to speak. You might have only spoken to boardroom members, so you've only got showreels or experience of 15 people in your audience, and that's fine if that's your niche. If you want to apply, like say the stages that you've spoken on, like Elevate, right? You've got that expanse to show how many people are in that audience. Because you know this as a speaker trainer. As the stage grows, and you can't see this because I'm split here, but your body language needs to expand. Yeah. So you need to use the whole of the stage to get a 10,000 people audience rather than staying here in this small area for a boardroom.
Yeah.
So all of these things, your show will demonstrate your ability to speak, your credibility of the stages you've spoken on, your results that you've got from people's testimonials that are coming up and saying, you know, little snippets of things that you've done for them. You can't make that impact without a showreel. So we ask everybody to have a showreel. That's our first thing.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the length of that show reel. And if people are just coming from only having done virtual speaking because of COVID or boardrooms, let's talk about that. But there's one point I want to push on first, and that's this. If you think that some booking agency is going to Google you to find out if you're a good speaker or not, that's like playing Russian roulette. I mean, every now and then I Google myself. Fortunately, I dominate, the highest rankings, so that you're going to find, of course, my LinkedIn, my websites, and whatnot. But if somebody Googles you and they don't know who you are, they're going to click on the first couple of things, and it may not be your best talk. And that's why you want to have these compilation reels that are really showing you at your best. Don't think that, oh yeah, they're going to find my TED Talk. Your TED Talk, my TED Talk is not often, well, it might be now, but it wasn't the first thing that showed up when you Googled my name. Now it is.
100%. Yeah. And the other thing is that people don't really understand how many applications we have. Even though we're a small agency, the amount of emails that go, can I apply to be a speaker? Can I apply to be a speaker? And we have an application form, which is quite in depth. But if you don't put everything on that form, we're not going to go and Google external staff. If we don't find it there in front of us, then, that's going to be filtered out straight away. So 100%, it's really important. So the couple of questions you had, speaker showreel length, ideally no more than 3 minutes, right? It's got to make that impact in 3 minutes or less. Think of it as like a commercial ad break, right? You got to get it across. You got to have, we will tell you the elements that support you, and the key sort of messages and features and assets to be involved in that showreel. And it's a real challenge to get it all across in 3 minutes, make it flow, have all the background music. I mean, even just your entry to this was beautiful in the fact that you had blended and edited it so that it actually worked with the messaging of your voice overlay and all that. That's the type of thing we want to have. But a showreel needs to be a demonstration or an illustration of you speaking. Do not have you being interviewed in a chair like this. This is not speaking. Do not have your showreel full of people going, I saw Andrea at this event and she was great. I don't care about those people. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear you speak. So the predominance of your showreel needs to be about you speaking and your key messages you want to be heard for. If you are new to speaking and you've just started doing this within COVID, and even if you haven't, right, hybrid is the new word going forward. We're never going to go back. So being a digital speaker is now a requirement. It's not an optional thing. Live is great, but you might have to be doing hybrid all the time. So you need to be considering those people being live streamed as well as those in the room. So what we do is we ensure that you have a digital profile on our speaker agency, showing all the kit that you use, understanding what tech you're used to. So you're giving that booker the confidence that you're a match and you understand this. I also love to show on speaker one sheets and showreels and websites what your digital setup looks like. Yeah. So take a picture of the ring lights, the mic, if you can see you've got a Yeti ring mic that you're using, put that in there because it shows the level of tech that you're using, but it also shows the setup so they can expect what to see in your background when you're live streaming. There's a great thing, espeakers.com do a digital presenter certification. So you could even put that little logo and stamp on your bio to say, look, I've been pre-tested and qualified by someone to say, look, my tech works, I work really well, I know what happens when things go wrong. And so these are things that I would highly encourage you to illustrate in your showreel. So actually film you doing a live gig with it on the screen so they can see how your setup is and put that in your showreel, because even if I've got lots of people doing TED Talks at the moment and doing TED online.
Yes.
You don't have the big TED like you've got in your showreel, but you've got it at the bottom. Those are things that you could make a lot of your speaker showreel up with now while we're in COVID, when you haven't got digital in live speaking events. And then you interlude that with some of the online summits you might have done, some of these types of interviews, like the overlay, but you take the sound out and you actually do your voice over the top of that. So there's always ways around it. You just need to have a showreel.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't stress that enough.
We've got it. We've got it. We must have the show reel. We will not pass go without a show reel. I love that. I love what you're saying. And, Kelly's just said it. If you are interested in speaking, now my light's too hot as the sun sets. If you want to become a professional speaker, a well-paid speaker, then join the Speaker Circle. It's starting this Saturday. I run a speaker training virtually online, and then I invite people to come here to France so that you can practice. Because what you said, Kelly, about being able to take up space, here in this little confined space, I can still use body language to communicate. But you're right, when I'm on a stage in front of thousands of people, I really have to expand and understand stage crafting. And so, highly recommend it. Visit makeyourmarkglobal.com. We'll get you signed up for the Speaker Circle and bring you to France next year. So let's continue. Go ahead.
On that, I want to pick up on this because it's really important, because I have to bust this myth quite a lot, especially as the speaker world opens up. Because in my opinion, there is speaking in different business models. And this is where people get a bit of a blurred line between what does it mean to be a professional speaker.
Okay.
I class them as two chunks: public speaking, professional speaking. Public speaking is when you use speaking as part of your sales channel. And I have no problem with this whatsoever. There are some great speakers out there that speak, have a wonderful keynote, and they don't get paid for it. Their payment comes in the lead generation that comes from that, or selling from stage, or promoting their book, whatever the outcome of public speaking for them is. They're using speaking as a marketing methodology. When people then go, well, hang on a minute, what about professional speakers? One thing, and this is a requirement from us as an agency, is you have to be professionally trained as a speaker. You have to do programs like you've just said, because we won't take on anyone that isn't charging more than 5K a keynote, so 5K for half an hour. Actually, most of our speakers are 10 to 50K a keynote. That's UK pounds for those only, you've got a worldwide audience there. So in order to charge that amount, you do know lead gen when you're doing your speaking. You do know sales, because you're getting paid for your art, your craft, the thing that you've diligently been developing and continue to develop as a speaker as you go on. Because speaking as a paid profession is a craft. And you see how beautiful it is when people understand storytelling and stage presence and your vocal training and, even the body language you were talking about. That's because they've trained in this and they've earned the right to charge not only for the content, but for the delivery, the way that they're actually delivering that. And that's one of the things that we require. Who have you trained by? What have you trained in? What is your ongoing professional development that's going to happen to ensure that you stay on top of your game? And being a digital speaker has actually had to change a lot of people's delivery style, because it's not so much a passive environment now where you stand on stage, you do your thing and you run off. Right. You've got to do icebreakers, you've got to do breakout rooms, you've got to do whiteboards and polls and get people's interaction as you're doing it. That's a new skill for a lot of speakers. So I just want to highlight that it's not a nice to have if you want to become a paid speaker. You can become a public speaker and have no training. There are lots of people that do really well in that. But a paid speaker, in my opinion, needs to have earned the right to charge.
I love it. I love it. I'm right there with you. So let's talk about some of the other things that one can do to prepare. Because yes, we have to get trained. You also help people really define their niche. Talk to me about niching.
So you said, I have to say niche, because every time I get interviewed on niche and people go, niche in America, they're like, oh, sorry, niche.
It's niche.
Thank you. So it's really important, right? Because of this blend and this opening up of the speaking world for public and professional, it's quite a busy marketplace. Similarly as what's happening with publishing of hybrid and self-publishing and traditional books, everyone can write a book now. So what you're needing to do is you're needing to stand out. You're needing to position yourself, and you can position yourself in various different ways. It could be your USP. which is your unique selling point. You might have a specific viewpoint, angle, delivery style, personality, whatever it might be that makes you different to other people in your field. Make sure you're understanding what that is for yourself, and make sure you're making that a feature and you're profiling and marketing that. The topics you speak on. So a lot of people ask me, what are the hot topics in the speaking industry at the moment, right? It's one of the things that we get asked a lot. I'll give them to you so you can see if you're in one of these categories. I know you are, but if your listeners are. But I just want to highlight that these topics don't really change year to year. Okay, so I'm going to read them from the top. This was a LinkedIn study that was done this year of the top speaking categories out there, and I'm just going to run through them. Resilience and adaptability is number one. Oh, big surprise. Who's in there? But also because of COVID, because of Brexit, because of all the things that are going on, which are requiring this in our world. Change is the only constant, right?
Yep.
Secondly, tech and digital skills is always up there. It's always massively up there. I'm going to read through before I go off my ranting here. Communication across remote teams is up there. Emotional intelligence, cross-functional collaboration, leading through change, diversity and inclusion, dealing with stress, time management and creativity. They were the hot topics for 2021. Please don't think, oh, I'm a leadership speaker, so therefore I'm up there. I want you to niche. So if you said you're a leadership speaker and you Google leadership speakers, oh my God, millions upon millions upon millions of results are going to come up. Think about what's needed in your audience, your avatar, and think about where you really excel in that space of leadership. So if you've been involved and helped and supported lots of mergers and acquisitions, then let's niche as a leadership speaker for merging and acquisition companies. I mean, God, you're going to have loads as a result of that. But people are going to go and they're going to think, I'm going through this right now. I need this person. That's the specialist area of leadership. And you can then really refine your keynotes. You can really refine the ROI. You can refine the messaging. You can target the people that are going through that on LinkedIn by seeing what public records are out there, what companies are currently going through this. And that's your marketing strategy, right?
Yeah, I love it.
So I think, someone that we manage is like Dave Coplin, for example, who's the ex-chief and vision officer of Microsoft. He's on our books. And yes, he'll talk about tech and digital, but he talks about it from the rise of the humans and what's happening with artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is not here to go, is not going away. What companies need to do is go, how are they using it, and how are they actually using it to accelerate the human potential in the organization, the creativity, another one of those topics. And so it's looking at tech, but from a real specific lens and a niche point. So you can niche in your USP, your style, your delivery, but I also want you to think about niching on your topic, because that gets you really pithy. I can then instantly go, I'm going to go through all these companies and prospect because you've got a keynote that I know this company's going to need.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That we're so aligned, as you already know. That's what we do in the personal branding bootcamp. Is I help people really niche down with your areas of expertise, what you deliver on, and what you're passionate about. Because to Kelly's point about don't just say I'm a leadership speaker, I also would say don't just throw your hat in because you've heard that it's a hot topic. Because if your passion is not in it, people are going to feel that. And they're also going to look at the collateral. Like, have you been speaking on this topic in a lot of other areas and writing on the topic? Are you actually a thought leader or not? Because if you're just throwing yourself in the ring, that's obvious.
Yeah. I want you to be like a stick of rock, that wherever I cut you open, your core messages, your core themes are like branded on there, whatever way they slice and dice you. Because actually what happens now, and we're seeing this in compassion and authenticity are really top themes that are in the world at the moment. People are fed up with the one size fits all, I'm doing this as an opportunity thing. People buy people, and we know this. But actually, how do you show them this authentic you? How do they show them your core messages? And I think the way that you can do this, which I'm sure is part of your session one with you, is actually what's your why?
Yeah.
What's your purpose? What's the golden thread that's gone through your life to get you to this stage? And where do you want it to continue? because people want to get on your bus. They'll want to get on your mission if they feel aligned to that. And then you'll just find your tribe. And really, people think, well, I'll do that later. I'll work my keynotes out first. And I'm like, this is so important for crafting your story, for making sure that you don't ever feel to an outside person, well, hang on a minute, last year she was talking about car mechanics and now she's talking about hairdressing and, all these types of things that people are like, who is she?
Yeah.
Right? So this stick of rock analogy is your responsibility to own that and know what you want to be known for and seen as now and going forward.
Yeah, I love it. And the surprising thing for me, yes, authenticity is a big part of what we do at Make Your Mark Global. The Authentic Personal Branding Bootcamp, it's in the name. The Speaker Circle is the Authentic Speaker Training. But I came to this area of authenticity because in my first brand, I was not 100% authentic. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm sorry for my audience who's heard this 50 times, but there's a big challenge that if you become known and people come to expect whatever this brand image that you put out is, they're going to expect you to keep being that. And so if you think, oh, I'm going to be the next Tony Robbins or the next Deepak Chopra, and you mold and fold yourself into this image, and then you show up as somebody different, there's going to be this dissonance, and you won't keep getting booked. In my case, I had to kill off the original Dr. Andrea brand.
And how hard was that, right?
Well, for me, it actually wasn't hard. I just disappeared. But for some people, that's not a possibility. I happened to move to France. So for a couple of years, I just focused on my daughter. But I had the opportunity to have a deep spiritual shift. And when I came out, I knew that I had to rebrand myself.
Yeah.
And I knew, okay, well, how am I going to brand myself from the French Riviera? And the way I thought to do it was with a TED Talk. And then a few weeks later, as I'm crafting this TED Talk, I got a phone call from the University of Monaco that they got a license. But for me, it's been crucial to come out as the real me, because I've gotten more high-paid speaking gigs since being my vulnerable self. I'm still a nerd. You're still going to get all the stats and all of the other good stuff, but I'm no longer hiding behind that. I bring my heart.
Do you know, you just said a really key word for me, which I believe that, hybrid is one of the words in the speaker agency going forward in the speaker world, but vulnerability is the key for me. And vulnerability doesn't always mean that you're showing weakness, because the vulnerability, I feel, is actually most people's strength when they show that. But when you're delivering keynotes and you're connecting with people, they really relate and they appreciate you telling them when things pivoted, went wrong, where your learning was, rather than the polished version of you on the stage of, hey, this is me and everything's going really perfect and don't you want to be like me? Yeah. They appreciate that because it gives them hope and inspiration. But the bit that actually makes the mark for them is, wow, I really respect and honor where you're coming from, what you've now told me, because I'm going through exactly what you're going through right now. And I would never have thought that you'd been through that too. So I think this is the art of storytelling, right? And there are so many ways that I'm sure you cover, but that connection piece, that raw, real vulnerability, deep insights is more important than actually what you want to teach them. Because what you want to teach them is probably already out there in the universe. Many of us don't come up with new stuff. It's the way you position, package, and tell that story that actually makes them listen and hear it through their own ears and eyes. So I really want to pick you up on that and really highlight that I'd love for your audience to get more vulnerable.
Yeah, and there are some people who use that as a shtick, and I've seen it gone wrong, where people will try to open up and share something vulnerable, but you can tell if it's not an authentic thing, that they're just trying to pull at your heartstrings.
If you cry at exactly the same point of the keynote every time I see you for exactly the length of the 30 seconds, something's not quite right there.
And it happens, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, yeah. So yeah, I think it's really important. So I think these are the things, as an agent, having that, charging your fee, which comes from having professional speaking advice and training like yourself, having the experience of speaking on various different stage, which, don't get me wrong, you might have to start by doing some public speaking to capture some footage, which is free speaking, to capture some footage for your showreel, to refine your keynote, to get feedback, to get testimonials. I'm good with you doing all of that as long as you know why you're doing it, and then you're getting the contracts to be able to use that footage in your own showreel or e-commerce, etc., etc. Then when you've got to that level of you're trained, you've got evidence, you've refined your keynote, you know your niche, your positioning, your bio's written, you've got beautiful headshots created for publicity, speaker one sheets, all of these types of things. Then it's the fact of like, actually, who is my avatar? Who's the audience that will pay me to speak? And how do I prove the return on investment from that keynote? If you're charging 10K a keynote, how can you prove to that booker, and normally they're corporations that will pay you, that they're going to get 10K and back from this keynote? What evidence can you tell them? What case studies can you show them that had actually resulted in this? Whether it's the fact that it's your keynote that gave it to that, or whether it's the keynote that then opened up to some C-suite SLT training that you did on a program afterwards, because that's what I'm finding. Most of my speakers are actually having other areas that they can continue that learning onwards.
Yeah.
They go, oh my God, I loved you when you were at the AGM and everyone's raving. Do you do any coaching or anything? Do you have an ongoing program? And actually, for most people, for most of my speakers, that's like an extra 60, 70K just to like go and do an SLT training for a few weeks or whatever. So think about expanding yourself to being more than a speaker.
Define SLT for the audience.
Sorry, senior leadership team. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but what you're talking about is exactly right. I see a lot of my professional speaking as my lead gen into my one-year academy, or to come in and do workshops within corporations or in other places. So we have a couple of questions. I want to get to some audience questions.
Yeah, please. I love them.
One that came in from Pauline McCarthy. Most of the video I have from my talks has not been recorded well. Can I then make my own fresh reel in my studio? Would that be acceptable? And again, she's asking how long should the reel be? And we said less than 3 minutes, Pauline.
There are some people, it's really interesting, and I've seen this work. There are some people that will actually hire a studio that looks like you're on stage, when actually you've just hired the stage in the studio and you've got a professional team to film it. And I'm okay with that, as long as you're making sure that that's the bit that you're actually be cutting away for your key messages, right? And we have training that teaches you on what elements need to be in your showreel, right? We have a program called Rising Stars that takes people through that. But for me, that's not enough. In your showreel, I would love for there to be a minimum of 3 stages.
Okay.
Because that shows you, and if those stages can vary in audience size, so some of them might be an intimate gig, one might be to 1,000, might be to a few hundred, and again, if they could have branded, like AKA TED, or you had Elevate in yours and stuff, it automatically, you'll borrow credibility. You're showing that, well, if Elevate had her, she's got to be good, right? That's what bookers are thinking. So even though your quality might not be good, Pauline, for some of your gigs, maybe you could have some still photos that you could actually make as a moving collage when you do a voice overlay over the top of that from what you're actually doing on stage in this made up studio, and then you intershot with the stage with actually what you've done live, and then make it more robust. Because I feel like I still want to see audio when in your showreel, if you can show the audience span and actually have a camera. I always get the camera to try and do an over my shoulder shot to the people so they can see you delivering to the audience. That's the best shot, because people go, wow, that's a big audience. She must be able to do that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think let's be creative. Let's use imagery, photos. If the sound quality is not good, let's strip the sound out, just use the video and do a bit of overlay. But I just want to highlight, I need to be able to see you speak in it. So I think it's a good, one thing I have to add, your showreel should be changed and updated at least every year. Right? Because your message might change, your results might change, your stages have got bigger, you've won more awards, all these types of things. So your showreel should update. So this could be a great starting point for you, Pauline, but then I would say let's progress.
I love it. I love it. And so Donna has another question about niching. Can you give an example of how to niche this topic of leading with change?
Okay. Leading with change. So this is where you could get really pithy, right? So I don't know do you know where any of your audience is from?
Well, she's in America. I know Donna
Okay.
is, but she could speak to anyone, but yeah.
Do you know what Donna's subject is for her? Do you know her as a speaker?
I think she helps people who want to transition out of corporate, either climbing the corporate ladder or transitioning into entrepreneurship. I think we'll work that out when she joins the speaker circle.
Let me take you in. I was on a Clubhouse about a month or so ago, and I was dealing with a lady who's something similar. So one of the things could be leading through change. What this lady was doing is she was like, hang on a minute, the amount of women that are at C-suite level in corporations is ridiculously low, right? So she's actually going, well, how can I position that I empower the women to climb that corporate ladder, but also the education to the organizations about equality and diversity, and talking about why is this that C-suite levels are basically grey suits, grey ties, grey men, boardrooms. Where are the women? Where's the color? Where's the creativity? And so she's coming at this leading through change, that if the world's going to change into becoming, and you'll get me with this, with a much more blend of masculine and feminine energy in the corporate land, right? This is what we're seeing happening. Then how do the boardrooms reflect that? And that would be my niche angle if you were going in, just as an example of women climbing that corporate ladder. This would be how you position yourself, that are you going to be like the dinosaurs where your corporation is going to fail because you're not leading with the creativity, the feminine energy, as well as the focus, let's get stuff done, strategic male energy? And I want to support more women in boardrooms. That's her. That could be her vision, message, key thing that she want to get everybody on board with. Just an example, right?
Yeah, loving it, loving it. So Laura, who I think is in Switzerland, says, it has been said that we should adapt our speech to the audience. How do you do that if you don't know who your audience is? Now, Laura is a painter, so she paints beautiful, I can't show it to you now, but it's on the wall here. She's a painter. So if she were to be speaking, how would you advise her?
Brilliant. Really good question. And I love that you bring it up, because audience is key. And this is why, again, with people who have one keynote and you see them do the same thing, not the fact that they cry at 13 minutes 33, but it's the fact that your core message in your keynote should always be the same, because this is what the stick of rock we're talking about, what you want to be known for. But actually how you bookend that keynote should be all down to the audience. And it's your job, if you're getting paid speaking gigs, to be the researcher before the gig happens. So this is one of the things with Stella, with who we manage. You'll be shocked at this, most event bookers don't actually know what the outcome they want from their event of why they're hiring a speaker. They're like, oh, well, we just want to have a bit of fun and we want to, have some team building. And you're like, what's the ROI? What's the outcome? How do we know if we've hit it? So we have to do a lot of work with our bookers to actually help them get clarity on this. But we also go, and I want the demographic of the audience. So who's in there? How much do we know about them? Ages, pain points, needs, job levels, all these types of things, so that we can actually go away and actually open up with a real hard-hitting, bespoke opener that's going to go, that's me. How does she know that about me? Who's she been talking to, type of thing? And it's beautiful now with the digital world. You can even do things like apps, like there's a Mentimeter, which is an app which you can do where you can actually poll your audience at the beginning and go, okay, so how many of you are feeling creative, if it's painting or something, and you poll them, and then she does her inspirational keynote, and then you do at the end, how now do you feel creative, if that was one of the objections, and then you go, well, there's a result they got from being in a half an hour keynote with her. But the point is ask your audience or ask the corporation, and then make sure that you've done your industry research. they're booking you and they're paying you because they want you to bring that information to them.
Yeah.
So as an agency, we've just done 2 reports this quarter, one on how the tech industry's changed post-COVID, and one how the wellness industry's changed post-COVID. All the research and stats showing corporations what's changed, what software's come in, what new standards have come in. And that's the type of thing that you need to be then telling your audience, because if they're in healthcare and you're coming in with this message here, you need to be giving them the industry stats, trends and standards that will educate them on what they need to do. Don't expect them to find this stuff out for themselves. That's your job.
Yeah. You know what? I am so loving this because I am one of these people that I will go and I do lots of research before I pitch. Like an inquiry may come in, I will go and do research before I pull something off the shelf and say, oh yeah, I have a keynote for that. And I'm really proud that in July I was in the United States and I gave a keynote and I got a 5-star review from the organization. And the two guys that were managing me, they were like, how did you do that? That was a total perfect setup for this wellness thing that we're doing this weekend. Like, how did you know that? And I'm like, well, we had a discovery call. You told me what you wanted. I went and did the research. I tuned into my own heart. I'm a big believer that the divine flows through me. And exactly as you said, I opened it with a direct, like, straight line to the heart for these doctors and nurses and care managers for this healthcare system in the US. And after the talk, there were women and men who came up to me and they said, you were speaking just to me. You were here just for me today. And it's beautiful. It's so fulfilling because this is my job, but I'm also connecting with people from the heart, and doing that little bit of research is key.
And you'll get the audience going, you'll get the VP coming, you know that slide? Could you send me those stats? Yeah. I just want to take it back to the team meeting and just show them. You know that you've got such value there.
Yeah. So this is a slightly different question from Beyond the Literal. She asks, Dr. Pennington, what would you identify as your bridge between rebranding yourself while balancing the space of redefining your self-identity? Well, for me, I had a very hard line in 2005 when I entered burnout. I was at an all-time low emotionally. I had a near-death experience where I had given everything over to God. And here on the French Riviera, I went through my own rebirth. Coming out of that experience, I knew that I could not go back to the way I was living before. I mentioned it earlier in the broadcast. I was the face of Discovery Health Channel, representing the network, doing documentaries and TV news. And I wasn't able to communicate all of the stuff I was doing on the spiritual side and in the wellness space. And for me, that was a no-go. I couldn't go back to that. So for me, the few years that I took in transition, my self-identity was already kind of like solidifying after that near-death experience. I realized who I am as a soul. I believe we are souls and we incarnate. We come to this earth to live out our destiny, our message. And for me, not living that way led to depression and burnout. And there was no other way to live. So it did take a few years. That TED Talk was a huge milestone in coming out as my authentic self and being embraced and accepted for who I am. So hopefully that answers your question. But so before we wrap up, Kelly, what would you advise people? So some people are probably ready. They have the bio, they have a speaker's reel, they have a list of topics, they have the headshots, and maybe they're looking to you to say, can you represent me? Do you only represent people on this side of the pond? You're in the UK?
No,
Tell me.
No, we've got speakers worldwide, and hey, we're all global now, right?
Yeah.
But so one of the things from our speaker agency, if you are at that criteria of being a stellar speaker, then we welcome that. We have, as I said, we have a very in-depth application form. One, to put people off, because if they're not willing to fill in the form, then we know how dedicated they are. But I would first of all look and make sure you're not wasting your time. So we show what the criteria are that we're looking for on our site. And one of the things I want to highlight is we don't take on speakers that are on the same topic. Because we're at that bureau, we're at that agency side of things, we're not a bureau, we want to make sure that we're representing one person on that topic, on that area, on that niche. And so we don't have to go, well, do we put her or him forward or give them a choice? We actually want to just represent those people fully. So that, again, have a look and see who we already manage from a stellar speaker point of view, and make sure you're not going to waste your time filling that in. And again, one of our key criteria, which is different to other agencies and bureaus, is that you have to be a thought leader and a change agent. So you might be a great, I don't know, Forex trader speaker, and that's great. I have nothing against Forex trader, but if you're just teaching people how to do that, in our opinion, that's not being an industry leader, busting that, rocking that boat as such. So that's something that one of our main criteria is your thought leader making a positive impact. And when we do, then we'll interview you. It's quite a lengthy process, and there's a lot of values alignment and stuff. And then what we do is we work for our speakers. So our agents are out there, not just inbound inquiries, but we'll go, okay, so who are the companies you want to go and work with and speak at, and why? And then our agents will actually go and start prospecting them with that message, with some of the research and stats that we've got and reports, and actually do that negotiation on your behalf, along with contracts. There is no fee to be a speaker. We just take 20% commission of any keynote that we get for you. So that's pretty standard in agents and bureaus. But I would probably say 80% of the people that email us and contact us don't have the criteria that are ready to do that. So, when we were thinking, God, there are so many people that have got so much potential, but they're missing the marketing, the positioning, the niching, all of those bits to actually profile them. We were like, okay, we need to help these guys in a way that's really easy and accessible, which is when last year we created the Rising Star program, which literally hands-hold speakers through creating their bios, creating their showreels, creating their portfolios, their one sheets, their niching, their keynote topics. And when we get engagements come through to us that are like, oh, we've got a gig here for £1,000, it's not enough for us to go and do all that work of negotiating contracts and stuff for 20% of £1,000. So we decided to create a platform where we'd put speaking opportunities, both paid and free, in there for people to go and apply for themselves. So there are lots of free gigs out there if you want to do the public speaking side of things, to get yourself on stages, get showreels, even self on stage. And then if there are some gigs that are like £1,000 a keynote, we'll put them in there and people can just apply for themselves. So it's this community. It's £60 to have all of the training, to have live training quarterly, to have all these options to the speaker agents, the speaker opportunities. And that's our Rising Star program, which you can find on the website. And that's probably where most people need to be. And when they've completed that course, we say, okay, now you should have all these assets. Come and apply to be managed by us because you've done all the things that we require.
Got it. So do the work, do the Rising Star. It's going to walk you through, as she said, holding your hand stage by stage, step by step. I love it. Well, this has been so helpful. And is your Facebook presence also a place to help speakers?
Yeah, definitely. So I run a Facebook group. There's currently about 12,000 members in there, called the Connection Hub for speakers, authors, and coaches. And that's more where, as I said, agents hang out, but also we teach you around the other areas of writing a book, having a business, that portfolio style business in there. And we do live training every week, and we have networking there. So it's a hub of activity and a great place to hang out.
Awesome. Kelly, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us, for sharing so generously of your time and your expertise. I know that this is helpful to some people, so I imagine that people are sending you love. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great week, everyone.
All right. So there you've heard it, my friends. You can join me in the Speaker Circle, the Authentic Speaker Training. Just visit makeyourmarkglobal.com. We also invite you to come to France in 2022 for the Speak from the Heart workshop. So until we meet again, remember, my friends, you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love.